economics of cloud computing. We're going to take you through what cloud computing is, the company we chose, and why we think it's burning. It's in a Red Sea right now.
We like to go out, come up with some ideas, and at the end, when we come up to bring these ideas to the life, the main problem is we come up with ideas after drinking. The main problem is cash, money. So, but the more important thing is nowadays the coming up with the ideas, because what we do, we have to focus on what we are doing and run the better business using the cloud. Because in the cloud, you have like a 20-80% rule. 20% is your ideas and your application. 80% is the running your IT operations, data center. So all we need to is to focus on ideas, and we will use the clouds from there. For example, in the cloud right now, the biggest company is Snapchat. They're running their business with 50 people. There is one guy, 24 years old, and he's the billionaire right now. They went from 0 to 100 million users. And as their VP says, yeah, it was just me, one other guy, and it just worked, and we scaled up.
So what this means is, think about every time you guys send out an email, when you're on Facebook, you have all your friends, but you have all that content. Where is that all going? These companies aren't hosting it themselves. And think about where you work. All that data that you have where you work, is there some big data center right where you are? Absolutely not. But maybe they're using Rackspace. So Rackspace is a company, and it's a very, very popular company now, that does managed hosting, is a managed hosting, cloud hosting company. They actually now have almost 70% of the top 100 Fortune 500 companies under them. And we've never even heard of these people. But yet this is actually a disruptor for startups and companies. But let's talk about Rackspace. They have some, they call their employees Rackers. There's 5,900 of them. So they're the IT guys. And these 5,900 folks are managing 114,000 servers, over 300,000 customers. But look at their revenue, almost $2 billion. And many of us never even heard of these people. We've all kind of heard of cloud computing, never heard of Rackspace. But what does a cloud actually look like? It looks like this, and this is what they're doing. It's actually rooms and rooms, very cold rooms, of racks, which are these like mini computers that are hosting everyone's data. And they're throughout the world. Rackspace has 10 data centers throughout the world. But what's more interesting is, look at how much money they've been making over the last 2 years. They went up 100% in revenue, and their net income is great. So there is something there. So why does it matter? It's a disruptor, believe it or not. It's a disruptor for actual startup companies. Think about how many new web startups have happened over the last couple of years. It's astronomical. And one of the reasons why is because it basically gives agility to virtualize, or to virtualizing the IT resources. That used to be a huge asset that you would have to invest in. Now, it's a variable cost. They don't have to worry about it. So here is Cloudonomics, reduces the operating costs and lets you go drinking to come up with ideas so you can spend your money more effectively. This is why it's a disruptor, and this is what is making it quite interesting, because it is elastic scaling. What this shows here is times of old, you also, if you had a company you wanted to start with a lot of data, you would have to set up a data system, you're wasting all this money. But now you get to be quite lean. You just have to outsource it. So it's important because it's pay as you go, elastic scaling, speed to market, low cost, and extremely reliable. You don't need to worry about your data anymore.
Here we have other players here, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and they are very big players. And they, like for example, Google invest $20 billion in 2012 Rackspace, they just invest $1.4 billion for the infrastructure. So they cannot compete with them in the infrastructure. So they have to go on expertise and knowledge, and this is their own. Also, in profit margin is higher if you use your knowledge, but if you go infrastructure, the profit margin will go down.
So
As
go ahead.
as we see here, Rackspace is number one in the managed clouding. So we are suggesting them to go on this direction.
They have a lot of competitors. People are going to start going after them because they are a managed service. So unlike Microsoft and Google, they're more the infrastructure. These guys are your IT department. They're the ones who are managing it for you. But now, just like we were talking about the network effect, all these companies are now thinking, oh great, I can have a startup because there's someplace to host it. Now all these companies are like, ooh, I can start a hosting company because now there's all these companies that want startup. So we're having that network effect in a slightly different way, but it's like the Uber that we talked about yesterday. You know, once someone goes online, is there a car ready? Is there someone who's going online? So this is the same type of effect that we have going on. And we wonder, are all these folks going to start chasing them? So are they going to maintain their price leadership? So once you have an idea, strategy, and sense, you can take off into the cloud. What is really exciting about cloud computing, it is really more about pricing innovation than the technology itself. So even here, we found a quote that said, what's really mind-blowing is its ability is like it's like a utility. So think about the more gas you use, electricity you use, the more you pay. So there you go. It's a successful base scaling, and it allows for cash flow positive infrastructure. So we'll leave you with a quote that we found on their site from one of their key customers who runs an e-commerce company. They grew 30 to 40% a year and don't have a worry at all about the technology, and it is an e-commerce company. So we're leaving it with they're a price leader, the cloud is a disruptor, and there is a network effect. And this is why we chose Rackspace and a new sort of player for all of you guys to now think about, or a new industry to think about. Thank you.
Very interesting. Didn't know anything about it. I knew about Amazon, but nothing about Rackspace.
Mehmet totally, he challenged our group to let's think sort of
That's a
something
great
different.
idea, and I think the last issue you raised, which is how do they stay ahead? Is it going to be like Uber, where they just stay ahead because everybody's using them, as everybody uses them, maybe their costs of providing this service are lower than everybody else's, and everybody's using them anyway, and so an entrant finds it really impossible. Is that logic possible? That's what I want to know.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go for it.
Just a comment. So this was great. This is spot on. This is totally my world, right? This was spot on. The one thing to think about is this business model basically enables other businesses to lower their entry costs, and like the fixed cost basically goes away. So all of most of these guys have something called a free tier, where basically it's your development. You can basically build something and pay nothing, and stand it up and only pay when you start earning revenue, right? So I think that's very compelling because your marginal cost is now your entry price.
Yeah.
There's one other question.
How do they compare to Amazon, really? Because I didn't get that from this slide.
Yeah,
The
just
infrastructure. Amazon only provides the hardware.
No, not quite. They also provide AMS. They provide
AWS.
So
How
you have the
do
software
you,
component.
so follow on to that, how do you compete with the platform as a service? And there's so much else out there that like Google and Microsoft and Amazon are now providing.
That's why we talked about the rackers. So we did know because there's software as a service. There's about 3 or 4 key things that can be offered.
Kinds of
So we're actually going to probably focus on one. We're going to focus on one.
Okay.
And that's why I mentioned the rackers, because right now that's a big differentiator. I was going to say Google just announced that they're investing even more money into their infrastructure. And part of that is because even though someone like Rackspace is more of the managed service, Google's now thinking Rackspace is doing so well, we got to get into that too. And that's kind of where this Uber situation comes in.
So I come up against this all the time. It's the IBMs and the Accentures of the world that are your competitor in the managed service space, more more than Google and Microsoft.
So, well, because I was looking at the paper saying that Google's now putting all that money in to also further compete with the other managed service guys. Perfect, so we'll wrote that down, I think.
Yeah.
So we got
Yes,
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.